Hi, everyone. This is Ben, K7BEN, and I'm back again on behalf of the Jacksonville Range Association looking at two pretty new and pretty popular handheld radios, the ID-52 from Icom and the even newer ID-50 from Icom. So we have the 52 on the left here and the ID-50, and I've had the pleasure of using both of these radios pretty much side by side for about a month. The first and most obvious thing we'll notice is the size difference. The ID-52 does have a larger footprint, and I thought it was really just a larger screen in the case itself, in a larger case itself. But if you look very closely, the buttons themselves are actually a little larger. So the radios do use the same size pad here, control pad, and the buttons are larger. When we look at the side, the buttons here are a little larger as well. So if you take a look at the size of the ID-50 push to talk button, squelch button, and power button, the ID-52 has a little larger button. So if you have larger hands or you prefer larger buttons, the ID-52 is going to be the radio for you. So when we look at the top of the radio, the similarities are really starting to show here. We have the indicator light for receiving and transmitting, the little bulge for the GPS, and a little indicator that the radio has GPS, and then our squelch and volume and multi-purpose channel knob. So the only differences here that I noticed with the radio is on the ID-50, when I change the channel, I get a little less of a click, a little less of that tactile feel of clicking when you're changing channels. Same thing with the volume. When I adjust the larger ring, which is the volume on the ID-50, I barely feel any clicks or notches, whereas on the ID-52, they're a lot more obvious. I'm not sure if that's just manufacturing variances or if these parts are truly different. The next thing we'll look at are the ports on the sides of the radio. Again, the ID-52 still being on the left and the 50 on the right. Identical microphone and speaker ports. So same size there. What's different about these radios and what got a lot of people excited about the ID-50, there it is, USB-C on the right on the ID-50. The 52 has the older style micro USB port, and then of course the coaxial type connector. The ID-50 did come with a very nice USB cable. I was expecting something, dollar store quality or to not get a cable at all. But instead it came with what appears to be a very thick, very nice, well-built USB cable. The USB charging and data goes through the same port. So you do get free software with Icom, and you get a USB cable. So out of the box, you have a charger and you have a programming cable. So there's no additional software cable, anything like that to buy to program these radios. Next, we'll talk about battery and battery life. Obviously, the nice big color screen on the ID-52 is going to take up more battery. The ID-52 did quite well on battery, especially with the GPS turned off and the brightness of the display cut down and the time for the display backlight shortened. I used this radio 8 hours monitoring traffic on a local D-Star repeater, and then went to a high school football game and listened to the game commentary on FM radio for about 2.5 hours for the high school football game. And it still had battery left over to monitor the repeater on the drive home. So obviously that would vary a lot depending on how much I transmit. Another thing about transmitting, these do have what ICOM calls the super low power setting, which is great for using with hotspots where you do not need a lot of transmit power. Now, I did look at the charging speed of both radios. using a USB digital multimeter, and I found that they charge similar to the way a cell phone does. If the batteries are extremely low, they charge up to about 1 amp. And as the battery gets fuller, the charging speed slows down. And when the battery is full, the charging stops completely. I've heard people saying that these shouldn't be left on the charger. And based on what I read with the USB multimeter, there is no amperage movement when the charger is plugged in and the battery is full. So I don't see, based on that, any harm in leaving them on the charger for an extended period. The good thing about the somewhat slower charge rate compared to some cell phones that will charge at 2 or 3 amps is that a slower charge speed at 1 amp on these batteries, which are typically smaller than today's average cell phone in capacity, means that the batteries will last longer because they are not being charged up at such a high speed. Now, flipping the radios on the back and looking at the batteries, well, they're the exact same thing, same model battery. Both radios use the model BP272 battery, which has 1,880 milliamp hours of capacity. We can see here they are exactly the same. Now these batteries are also compatible with a lot of other Icom radios, including the IC705. Now, one of the main advantages of the display on the ID-52 being color and higher resolution is that you can directly receive and view pictures over D-Star with the ID-52's display. Now, if I go into menu and select picture and receive, I can look at the last pictures that were received. And here's essentially a picture of itself. Now, one thing I noticed about the Bluetooth software and the pictures was that even with a good signal through a repeater, if there was any kind of crosstalk, you can see here on this picture how there's some black squares that are missing, some segments. And one of the things I wish the software would do is the radio knows and the software should know which one of these segments did not receive data or enough data to complete the picture. I would love to see a feature in a firmware update or software update that can go back to the radio that was transmitting and say, I missed these segments here. Please go back and send me those a second time so you have a much more higher chance of having successful pictures. And here's an example of a picture that went quite poorly. This is a picture of an Icom 7610, and we had a lot of issues where the signal was good, it was going out, coming back in, going out again. So we have a lot of black spaces in the pictures there. Now, when we look side by side at the receive and transmit specifications for the radio, they are largely identical with one exception. The ID-52 monitors the 220 band, but above the ham band. So you won't be monitoring your local 220 repeater with this, but that band houses items such as military aircraft and things like that. So if you are an enthusiast who likes to monitor military aircraft transmissions or things of that type, the ID-52 again may be a better radio for you. Otherwise, I thought both radios were excellent. Ideally, if I had the ideal world, I'd love to have the ID-52, but with the USB-C port that comes in the ID-50. And who knows, maybe later revisions of the ID-52 will have that port, or maybe somebody will find a mod to swap out the port. Either way, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did like it, please give it a thumbs up. And for more ham radio content, subscribe to our channel.